Hobbies have always been that escape from reality that keep us occupied and distracted from the dark truth that is known as life itself. Whether it's painting, collecting figures, playing games, or even cosplay, just to name a few, GunPla has been a hobby that I never thought I would get into myself. For those new to me, I've been a casual Gundam fan and GunPla builder since 2021, right around the time when I took a break from all things Transformers. And it all started when my father showed me a video of the RX-78-2 that was walking in Yokohama, which I already talked about before. And it was also before I started watching some of the many anime installments as well, starting with Wing as my first specifically. I was walking around my local Meijer one day and I saw the high-grade Granddaddy Revive on sale for $10, and I was like, why not? And from that point on, let's just say I got crazy, complete with a backlog, and buying more kits than usual. #send help. I've built some kits before getting into Gundam, but when it came to using the proper tools to snip and sand and other stuff like that, GunPla made me advance the use of said tools later on. And while Gundam celebrated its 45th anniversary last year, this year marks the 45th anniversary for GunPla. And I can't think of a better way to make a review based on the most iconic mobile suit of all time for such an occasion. And I apologize about the imperfections and sloppiness here and there, as well as the difference in the filming location as I was on vacation when I recorded the footage. And also, since this was my first Gundam kit ever, I didn't know about the proper tools to use for panel lining as well as trimming pieces off the runners prior to kits I'd build later down the road, which I also have to thank my friend Phil for showing me the ropes to Gunpla as well as Gundam in general. But for the kit itself, I remember having fun with the build. After I was done assembling Granddaddy, it gave me a different sense of aura to my collection, between how iconic, blocky, and sorta curvy it is on the legs without making the overall design too convoluted. Even for 1979, I was like, yeah, I can dig this. While I used Sharpie on most of the areas for the panel lining, it wasn't until I got better with utilizing the proper tools that I finished with the rest of the panel lining properly without making things too messy. Beam saber handles and side vents on the head notwithstanding. Something I also noticed, looking back compared to other kits I've built, is the cool-toned plastic they used on the white parts. It's not as white as paper, but I can't help but think I'm looking at an Instagram filter every time I look at it. I guess you could argue that it's supposed to invoke the use of the colors on some of the cell animation shots, but it comes off as a weird choice of colors to me. As for the details, there's really not a whole lot outside of the bottoms of the feet, especially where the toes are hollow, and the back of the beam shield being all teched out. Though given how this is a design in the late 70s, I'm willing to give it a pass. As for the articulation, the head rotates 360 degrees as well as look up and down, side to side, and there's even articulation below the neck to give it a little bit of an extra range for the up and down movement. Not a whole lot, but there's some movement nonetheless. The arms rotate 360 as well and are on a ball joint, but there's a pulley cap that connects to it to give it an outward movement that's pretty good. There's also a little bit of forward and back, but it's not a butterfly joint unfortunately. The inner shoulders go out as well, but if you wanted to recreate that final shot from Granddaddy, you can here. But moving on, the arms rotate 360 at the upper part of the bicep without getting in the way of the outer shoulders. There's a double joint bend at the elbow, and also a polycap ball joint rotation at the hands. And to finish things off with the top half, there's a slight waist rotation, a little side to side, and an ab crunch. Moving on to the legs, they go forward pretty far, but not back all that much due to how the butt plates are engineered. The legs go in and out about 45 degrees, bends at the knee via a double joint, for a rotation at the thigh, forward and back ankles, not a whole lot of tilt, and barely a rotation. So articulation isn't the best for a kit like this, but it's not the worst either. As for accessories, Granddaddy comes with 3 hands, 2 of which are splayed open, but only one hand is worthy of holding the beam rifle, which would have been good to include another for the left hand, but I digress. And while on the topic of weapons, the only ones it comes within its arsenal are said beam rifle, the beam shield, 2 beam sabers already stored on the backpack, 2 beam saber effect parts, a very gray hyper bazooka with limited mobility at the handle, and a clip to hold the hyper bazooka. To mount it on the back, it's as simple as replacing the plate covering its ass and plugging the clip in. As for size comparisons, standard soda can and a Switch OLED. Very 2010s TJ Omega of me with the can, I must say so. Overall, if you're looking to get into Gundam or even just GunPla as a hobby, this isn't a bad kit to start with. Like any art piece, kits like these are always a learning curve for what you can bring to the table. Whether starting out, kit bashing, or even straight up repainting the whole thing, there's always something for everyone. While I was late to the Gundam party, it at least gave me the opportunity to learn the proper tools needed for basic kit building, and even network with friends and family about the art, and I hope to share some of that with other people as well. Same goes for you guys as well. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. じゃあな。